Salesforce is an API-first company, but our API automation is done with lots and lots of code. Our tests compete on complexity and learning curve with our broad code, and almost always they win. F-tests especially are unanimously the biggest productivity killer. Let's take an example from billing schedule service F-test. In a typical F-test like this, you need to handwrite all the code for internal utilities for setup data and then build request JSON, call the API, process the output JSON and then validate the output JSON. The lines of code needed to write such an F-test, excluding comments and black lines, amounts to 1185 lines of code. And the sad part is, all this effort is specific to a particular service or domain and rigid to extend and difficult to maintain. On top of that, we have a multiverse comprising of F-tests, E2E tests and manual testing with Postman, each with its own frameworks, tools and internal utilities. How productive would it be if you can configure an F-test or an E2E test just with the Postman collection that you anyway would have created for your manual testing? Introducing ReVoman, a template engine which can consume an exported Postman step collection and environment JSON files. Let's check out how you can perform template-driven testing with ReVoman. It reads the environment JSON provided into in-memory and then it inflates each static template in the collection, replacing the variables at runtime from the in-memory environment. It uses this information to fire a request and reads the response. It then executes PostScript.js on the response and updates in-memory environment. It marshals the response into strong types like the billing schedule list output representation and lets you run type-safe validations on strong types and fails fast at first failure. Guess who teamed up with ReVoman for this? It's Vader. The iteration continues for all the steps in the template collection. After all this, you receive back a detailed rundown of all the steps with all the request response data. You can kick all of this with a simple API call supplying a config. Let's check out how to build this config. Supply the path to the template collection JSON file like this and then the path to the environment JSON file. You can even provide any dynamic environment on top of it, which you only may know during runtime. You can provide strong types for the responses you are interested in. And finally, here is how you can hook your validations to run on the step response. You can leverage the power of Vader to write config-driven validation. Because both these tools are from the same development team, you should see homogeneous patterns and seamless integration and support. Done. A E2E test in one slide. Let's see this in action. The amount of code needed is drastically down by 86% and all of this is just for one F-test. Thus, ReVoman helps in writing low-code tests, but it's not just reduction in the number of lines, but a lot of reduction in the cognitive complexity, which in turn eases maintenance and boosts productivity. Transparency and better traceability of issues, and this forces engineers to think like API-first customers while writing tests itself. Now that ReVoman hooks these templates into auto builds or CI/CD, they always stay up to date, otherwise you gotta make sure they are with TFs. Any day you can find a Postman collection for every feature you need to test right in your VCS, and devs can import these templates directly from VCS for manual testing. This comes very handy during FF, RF and cross-team blitz. With ReVoman, you no more need a release task to keep Supernova up to date. This is a generic tool, and just by changing the template, the same config or pattern can be reused for any feature flow, agnostic of it being F-test or E2E test. You can use ReVoman for F-test data setup too. E2E tests can now be run as F-tests in auto builds to guard each check-in. The future looks bright with support to Kaiju templates, async operations, and pluggable parametric variables. Just like Vader, this is a generic off-code tool and a perfect candidate to publish to the world as an open source software. This is where you can find the demo CL and the repo. Thank you so much.